Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so back to the Seerah, inshallah, for another week, inshallah. Does anybody remember what we went over last week?
We talked quite a bit about the journey to
You remember what the city is called? Starts with a T.
yes.
Yes, right. Yes, the journey to Taif, very strenuous journey. This is preceding the year of what? The year of what they call it? It's a very tumultuous year for the prophet.
So
The year of Saul, yeah, the year of sadness. Where Abu Talib, his uncle, passes and protector. And also Khadija, love of his life, has passed. So he is widowed right now, and has no protection. And so he goes to Taif to do what? To do what?
grieve
No, not to grieve.
to see if he can reestablish himself and spread the message in another community.
Yes, and try to spread. Why do you think that is? In what situation would it be permissible for a prophet to leave their city and seek somewhere else to go preach? Because what?
His life was being threatened,
Mhm.
and he was going to survive there.
Yeah. Yes. So when all situations, when the road is narrow, as it pertains to spreading the message and your safety as a prophet, it was his duty to try to find ways to protect himself and the message to continue, inshallah. And that was his goal, was to spread and try to find protection within Taif. Very close by Mecca, not far away. Let's see if we can. Maybe 50 miles away from Mecca. 1 or 2 day trip. Taif is a different landscape. And there are many tribes around and within Taif. And so when the prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, comes to Taif, he talks to some of his distant cousins who are leaders, right? And they just banish him away. They don't listen. And this is a very hard time when the prophet was asked by his wife, Aisha, what day was harder for you than the battle of Uhud? And we know that in the battle of Uhud, the prophet got injured, and it seemed as though the believers were taken aback by a perceived loss. Some don't even view it as a loss, but it wasn't the victory that they had hoped for, and they suffered a bit of despair on that day. And it was a very tough and hard day for the prophet and for the believers, especially for some that thought that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, was killed on that day. And so his wife asked him, what's a harder day than this? And he explained to her that this time of Taif, or this journey, the city of Taif was harder, was one of the most hardest days, most humiliating times in his life. So you have a year of sadness for this, right, where you lose some of the closest people to you, and then you have one of the most humiliating times of your life where you almost are stoned to death, running away from those throwing the stones. And so out of this comes a Christian slave whom accepts the religion because he talked about the story of Jonah, right? And he knew Jonah being from Iraq. And that was the area in which Jonah's prophecy was established. And only the people of that area knew of Jonah, really. Not many of the pagan Arabs knew of that. And so he, by way of the prophet, Muhammad-Imam knew that this man was not just a soothsayer, this man knew what he was talking about, right? And that led to one of those conversions. Another would be soon after his encounter with the jinn. Yes.
When you say when you're talking this special person who had heard some of the I guess you call it revelation, some revelation early on. And would you say that he was from Iraq?
He was from Iraq, yes, the Christian slave.
The Christian slave.
Yes.
So are you talking about, okay, no, go ahead.
What?
I was going to say the name, but I wasn't.
What his name was? Yeah. Yes. Ades. What's his name?
So you don't hear much in the history of Islam or the Prophet about the people that that they bring in, that they bring you some knowledge of knowing about the religion.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
of you don't.
Yeah, and we'll be so throughout the Seerah, there are going to be people who know something about religion, right? It even started with his Khadija's cousin, I forget his name, but the wise scholar of Christianity around that affirmed the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, message when he first got it, right? And said that he wishes he would have been alive to hear it and to believe and to follow him in his way. Yes.
What period is you referring to right now?
This is the period right of the revelation of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So he's 40 years old. This is in Mecca. This is right when he had received revelation from the Mount of Hira. Yes. So there are many people who are come within the Prophet's life that know something about, even before this. When, the Meccan Arabs went to Yathrib to meet the Jews and to meet the rabbi who told them, all right, well, if the prophet says these three things, then he's considered a prophet, right? And if he doesn't, then you can dismiss him or whatever have you. So there are going to be people, and especially when we get into Medina era, there are a lot of those people as well.
So even when the Quraysh leaders went to speak to these Jewish leaders, they believed that there was a divine link, but still they did not accept the prophet being general part of it.
No. They knew, their hearts knew, but they didn't, their pride would not let them accept, right? They're more concerned with where the leader's coming from, what tribe the leader's coming from, who the leader, what status they are in society, than they are the actual message, right? That's they're just on this campaign of disprovement so that they can feel comfortable with their bias, right? Rather than acknowledging truth for what it is. So he comes from the city of Taif, and why doesn't he go straight back to Mecca? When they stone him and he has nowhere to go, why doesn't he go straight back to Mecca? Instead, he stops short of Mecca. Why is that?
Because he was stoned, he was weary, and he was depressed.
Okay, what's that have to do with going back to Mecca?
Oh, there was no protection there.
Yes, right. Who is the leader of the Hashim tribe, our clan now? Now that Abu Talib is dead? It's the famous, yes. It's in,
Wahab,
not, it's, sort of, Masjid. Starts with an L. Lahab, yes. Abu Lahab, right? Abu Lahab is the chieftain of the Hashim tribe, and they have now severed all ties with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So they are basically kicked him out of the Hashim tribe, right? And that is his authority as a leader. But the Prophet has no protection, so he can't just walk right back into Mecca because they would, try and take his life. So he makes a few stops along the way and sends some of his companions to go check out and try to find some protection for him to return. And if you remember, he asks the chieftains of Taif to not tell the Meccans he was in Taif, right, to protect them from that persecution as well. One of these stops is a famous encounter with the jinn, right? And Allah speaks about this in two surahs. The one is Al-Kahf, and Al-Jinn is the second. And you really have to consider how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a way out of this, very hard and tough time. Whereas his own closest relatives and people close to him will not accept, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so that these jinn who are of another nature accept and hear and listen. And he was in this valley called Nakhla. The Nakhla Valley is a little outside of Mecca, females, yes.
Yeah, like, how old was he at this period?
At this period, our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is, you can find exactly how old he is. Okay, so he is 37 at the time, 40 at the time of Revelation. This is 10, we're on year 10. 10 of the, this is where we go back to our handy dandy time. Yeah, so year 10, this is about year 10, 11, he's about 51 years old right now. 51 or 50 years old roughly. And this is when he's encountered with the jinn. And these jinn are the jinn of Nasif. Nasif is an area where we're in modern day Turkey. So they're around this area, right? And basically, Allah explains in this sort of path that this is something that happened. He says that this is Surah Al-Kahf, the sand dunes, 46 to Surah 46, verse 29. It says, it came to pass that we turned a company of hidden ones towards you, and they listened to the recitation of this Quran as they stood by. They exclaimed to each other, listen quietly. When the recitation was finished, they returned to their own kind and warned them. And also in Surah Jinn, verses 1 through 3, Allah says, say to them, it's been revealed to me that a group of hidden ones heard the Quran being recited. They listened to it, said, we just heard an amazing presentation. It guided us towards the right direction. So now we believe in it. We'll never hold anyone else the equal of our Lord ever again. Exalted is the majesty of our Lord. He hasn't taken any female consort, nor any son. Yes.
Is there a clarification as to the term the hidden ones mean?
Jinn. قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا.
So are we referencing, you said they came from different regions?
Mhm.
So are we referencing individuals who practice the secret arts, or are we talking?
No.
Plane.
Jinn are a different creation altogether, right? They're made out of different, and some say, you know, Allah knows best, but some say that it's a parallelish universe, right, within ours, where they can experience us or whatever have you, but we cannot see them. The beautiful thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation is that we won't fully understand everything within it, but we do know as we continue to grow in our knowledge of creation, even animals can see certain things in certain wavelengths that we cannot, as human beings, see with our eyes or experience, hear sounds that we cannot hear. Certain creatures can hear different types of sounds and different pitches that we cannot hear. I think something as simple as a dog whistle, right? Which really annoys a dog, but we can't hear it at all, right? And it's the same, similar in this case, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously in the Quran says that He created jinn, men and jinn, with free will. And they have some of the same, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, describes in his Seerah. They have some of the same tendencies. They have different aspects about them, but some of the same tendencies as far as belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Some of them partner with men, and some of them are on the righteous path, and some of them are not, right? That's explained in this sort of agenda as well. That's where you get some soothsayers and some, witchcraft and things of that nature, where you have these spirits that don't necessarily align with righteousness, and they conspire with each other, men and jinn or whatever have you, to create some type of confusion or whatever in society. And we see those even to this day. And it's hard for some people to explain. But it's also explained that when they listen to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, they listen to the Quran. And the Prophet is not just a messenger for mankind, but all of humanity, all of creation, to the day of judgment, right? And they listened and they understood, and they took that back to their people, and they profess that that Islam was the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. Some scholars say as though that actually in the Surah al-Jinn, the jinn are saying that they never thought that man would tell a lie about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so they kind of believe some of the things that other men have transcribed between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who were given a son or a daughter or whatever have you. And so this clears it up for them, as well as any other human being that listens to the message sincerely with an open heart. And the surah that they're referring to, that was recited by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was Surah Al-Rahman, right? And so Allah in the surah is explaining all of creation, these undeniable things that you see within creation that He's created, and that He is the master of them. So which of the favors of the Lord will you deny? And it's said in some of the hadith that every time the Prophet, when he narrated this and he recited Surah Al-Rahman amongst his companions, he asked them after, like, why don't you say anything after I say, because when I recited it amongst the jinn, they couldn't do anything but explain the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As if like when every time he said that verse, they said, oh Allah, make us not of those who are denying your blessing.
The period that you're referring to, where's it on?
This is the years between the year of sadness and
The year of what?
the year of sadness and Isra and Miraj, right? This is between that year, right? The 10th and 11th year
Okay, of this prophecy.
of prophecy. Yes. Right. So this is getting into the year of the early Medina period. Things are getting a little too hasty and hostile in the Meccan region, and so we're working our way up to that transition, right? And this encounter with the jinn is just affirmation for him that his purpose is bigger than just Mecca, right? Just the Arab tribes or whatever have you. His purpose is for the world, right? And people around the world and around the tribes around are going to accept the message. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of that and opening those hearts towards that message. And he just has to be confident and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will be the case, right?
He was real strong human being.
Yeah, imagine having to be around the jinn. I don't know what it would be like, but to be around the jinn by yourself. And even around this time, the other companions, no companions were with him, right? They couldn't find him, actually. They were looking for him during this time. They lost him, they couldn't find him because he was within the company of the jinn. They were not able to see or know where he was at that time. He was on his lonesome in the area because jinn aren't, as is prescribed or as explained by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in Seerah. The jinn are not. They like their privacy.
I mean, he would go to the cave, he would go to all time, he only go to the cave. You know.
Not during this time. He never went back to the cave after Revelation. This is the only time he went to the cave is during before Revelation to seek advice and to seek some type of higher knowledge and peace. But after Revelation, he never went back to the cave.
So this was perhaps an opening for him to, just prior to the mirage, I mean, to deal with, like it says, Allah is Lord of the world, so this door is opened up.
Yeah, and even, some use exactly what you said. Allah's in the Quran in Al-Anbiya, Surah Al-Anbiya, it says, we didn't send you except to be a mercy to all of the worlds, right? Allah is Rabbil Alameen, Lord of all of the worlds, right? All of the systems of knowledge, and we can't fully encompass what that is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us aware of these things, and we have to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and we know not. And then from there, we can derive knowledge and understanding and peace with that understanding, inshallah. And the jinn are similar in that way, in that we won't fully understand their life's style or whatever have you, except for what our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, tells us about them. But we can derive knowledge and experience. The Prophet says that every human being has a jinn with him, and he's made his Muslim, and that could be mean many of things. Imam Muhammad takes it to mean that we each have that whisper in us, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had formed a life so pure that he was able to convert that jinn to, or that whisper to Islam, so that anything that comes in his mind is sifted through the lens of Al-Islam, right? Now let's take it to mean that the shaitan has an army of those who follow him, who he has made follow him, just as we have evil people in this world who follow them, that are, and each of his minions or whatever have you has a person that they're assigned to get off of the right path and get off of the right track. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, made that person or that jinn Muslim around him because of the dawah of him living his life as a Muslim and not going on track, right? And we see within the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that these jinn have free will and they can assess whether or not they're going to be believers or disbelievers. As it said, that some of them believe and some of them disbelieve. And you should read the Surah of Jinn. That's very beautiful. Surah, the recitation is beautiful. وَأُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا يَهْدِي إِلَى الرُّشْدِ فَآمَنَّا بِهِ وَلَن نُّشْرِكَ بِرَبِّنَا أَحَدًا وَأَنَّهُ تَعَالَى جَدُّ رَبِّنَا مَا اتَّخَذَ صَاحِبَةً وَلَا وَلَدًا وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى شَطَطًا. Right, it's a beautiful surah, and familiarize yourself with it, and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about this encounter, right, with the jinn. And finally, his companions found him, and they were worried sick. Can you imagine? You have no protection, and you lose the Prophet in the middle of the night, and you're worried sick. You can't find him anywhere. They had heart attacks, right? And they finally reached to him and asked him where he was, and the Prophet explained that I was amongst the company of the jinn. And he actually took them to where he was and allowed them to see, in some narrations, allowed them to see some of the remnants of what what was around, when he was around them.
I was reading his book, The Life of Prophet Muhammad. I was reading his book over and I had like 25, 30 years. It's like every time I read it, I go back, keep going back. Unbelievable people being what?
Yes,
The people that were around me.
yes, mashallah. Yes. Yes. Okay, so, that was one experience that kind of lightened the prophet's peace and blessing be upon his heart and gave him some, some stability during this tough time. And also, he happened to receive, he happens to receive some companions from outside of Mecca, right? Two companions, notable companions during this time, came to him. Before that, he goes back to Mecca, so he finds somebody who can give him protection, and this person is Mut'im ibn Abdi. Mut'im ibn Abdi. Mut'im ibn Abdi is one of the ones who we talked about when he was what's it called? He was adamant about dismantling the boycott of the Hashem tribe. He was one of the ones who was on board with dismantling it. And that helped the prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, out. And he also now is giving the prophet protection in these last couple of years, which he needs in order to return back to his home in Mecca. And so he gives him protection. He asks other of people of his distant family, Mecca leaders, but they deny him or they make excuses. But Mut'im does not, and Mut'im is the chief of the Naufal tribe, and he was on board with the banishment of the boycott, right? And the prophet even had like a special love for them. He never accepted Islam, but and he died on disbelief. But that didn't stop the prophet from honoring him. And the fact that during the Battle of Badr, there were captives, right? And the prophet said to his companions that if Mut'im was alive today, and he had asked me to free these captives, these disbelievers who fought against the prophet, this message be upon him, then he would let them go, no questions asked, right? And this was the respect that he had for Mut'im, even though he was not a believer and died disbelieving. And it kind of shows us that we don't have to be so strict in our belief that we aren't able to honor others and work with others, even if they are against our guidance, so long as they're not causing it happen.
We haven't really gotten to the part of the battle.
No, not yet. Not yet. We'll get to there. Yes, and we're going to spend some time on that. It's going to be a great class, inshallah.
So,
yes.
in Nasif,
Yes.
that reminds me of what your comments, the last one we were talking about. The prophet didn't judge those, even if they didn't believe in Islam. A certain amount of respect was because there was a witness in that person, and that he felt, felt that he could trust them, whatever the decision was after he released them. But that made me think about us as Muslims and believers in our Islam. And we work across the board with other believers, I mean, like the Jews, the Christians, and we know that they don't believe what we believe or practice what we practice, but yet we're able to, get along and to be able to work something out together between one another.
Yes, yes, and that's vital if you're going to, especially as a minority in a place, which that speaks to as well. Like if you're the minority in a place, you have to get along with the majority of the people who are willing to offer some type of assistance or help, right? You have to make those connections and those ties, even if they don't have the same belief. And so once he has his protection, he gets two notable companions, Abu Dar and Tufail. Tufail is from southern, let's see, close to Yemen, right? Wherever it says winter, that's where he is from, and this is a tribe called Daus. And Abu Dar, where it said, are right between Mecca and Yathrib, is Gifar tribe. And this is kind of on the outskirts of Medina, right? So you see how the setup is happening, right? That these people are coming, like southern Yemen area. You have people coming to see the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, and then close to Yathrib, you have people coming to see the Prophet, and he's soon going to be moving towards that area. This isn't specifically in Yathrib, but we're going to get to some people from specifically within Yathrib that come to the Prophet as well. But Abu Dar is one of the major companions. He has a lot of hadith, and he was known as one of the stricter companions of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. As soon as he heard the Prophet recite and his words, he knew immediately that this was the way. This was he needed to convert, and he did. And he's known as one of the more stringent, really strict followers of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. For that reason, he was not chosen for leadership opportunities. In the Prophet's wisdom, he knows that a lot of people cannot follow such stringent, strict type. It's like he doesn't give an inch. He expects like the most or the best from everybody. There's one hadith in which he narrates that he asked the Prophet if somebody commits adultery and steals, will they go to paradise? Somewhere along those lines, where the Prophet is saying that even if you commit adultery, you still, Allah still, and you die on the path of repentance, on the path of repentance and forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you and you can enter paradise. You're sincere on your death. And Abu Dhar is asking the Prophet, even if they commit adultery and steal, the Prophet says, even if they commit adultery and steal, says, even if they commit adultery and steal, ya Prophet, even if they commit adultery and steal. Again, even if they commit adultery and steal, third time, even if they commit adultery and steal. And the fourth time it says, even if they commit adultery and steal, so the Prophet says, even if they commit adultery and steal, ya Abu Dhar, even if Abu Dhar does not approve of their forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive them. So you see the kind of the stringent character of Abu Dhar, mashallah. Yeah, and you need those different characteristics within a community, right? You have your soft and you have your heart to balance each other out, inshallah. And then you have Tufail ibn Out, and he's from down around this area, Yemen area, and he goes to the Prophet and he understands that this is the message, and he returns to his people per order of the Prophet to go and preach the message. He came to make a pilgrimage with some of his companions in that area who were receiving the message.
These were Jewish?
No, well, he was not Jewish. These were Arab. They explained, all right, when he converted, his companions didn't like it, and they kind of persecuted him away. They beat him severely a few times, and he complained to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saying that his people are lost, my people are lost, I can't do anything with them. And the Prophet orders him to go back to his people and preach the message, be patient with them. He says, return to your people, call them to Islam, and deal with them, and deal gently with them. Right, and he ends up gathering about 70 to 80 people to migrate to Medina shortly after Haifa, and that was war. This is later on in the Seerah. So these are two prominent companions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, with during these tragic times. But then now we're getting into Yathrib, right? And news of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, reach Yathrib, right? Let's see. Yathrib during this time is made up of different Jewish tribes and some Arab tribes. The two Arab tribes are two that we've talked about before. The Khuza'at, the Khuzraj and Aus, right? You see Yathrib in the name, the pure Arabs. Khuzraj and Aus, right? And then they have three major Jewish tribes that are made up of different sects, but the Jewish tribes are Qaynuqa, Nadir, and Qurayza. And they each have their leaders, who are either rabbis or leaders and political leaders for the Arabs. And they all live amongst one another, right? So the main tribes are those three. Those two Arab tribes have the different tribes within them, and then the Jewish tribes, and they have, their sects within them as well. Though they are all Jewish tribes, none of them get along, right? Though they are Arab tribes, none of them get along. So Yathrib at this time is very, very divided. And the only way they solve their divisions and their disagreements is bloodshed and war. So they're consistently going to war with one another. And it's becoming so bad that they are seeking ways to prevent it, or to find a change, right? And so this is the environment of Yathrib at the time. It's very tumultuous. It's very, they say, stepping on eggshells or, needles, whatever have you. Any disagreement can lead to an all-out war and bloodshed. Yes.
So the principles that were left by the prophet Moses, started to break down within the Jewish community, and that's why perhaps they were having such conflict among themselves.
Well, I mean, those principles started to break down even like during the time of Asa, but in Allah was pleased with him. And he came to correct them, right? And prophets came after Moses to the Jews, and they would find ways to either kill those prophets or just completely dismiss their prophecies and what they claim for them to do. Some follow, some disobey, and so on and so forth to this time. But even amongst these tribes, there are some that are noble, and there are some that are just have their own political agenda and game, right? Same for Christianity, and the same as how the people of Ishmael lost their way as well. The prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to come for all of humanity and correct those wrongs, those ignorances. So we see the environment before Hijrah in Yathrib, and it's very tumultuous, stepping on eggshells. The pagan Arabs suffer from an inferiority complex from the Jewish tribes. The Khazraj, yes.
Why did they feel inferior to the Jewish tribes? Was it because of the education, knowledge?
The Khazraj and the Aus, they were on the outskirts of Yathrib, and they didn't have the greatest lands. Most of their land was desert and very hard, rocky lands. Whereas the Jewish tribes, they kind of situated themselves to have better lands for farming. Yathrib was not a place like Mecca, where you have a lot of commerce coming in and a lot of different caravans and people migrating, coming through. Yathrib was more, they depended more on farming. They depended more on agriculture. And the Jewish tribes had the better lands at the time with palm trees and date trees and so on and so forth. They had a lot of that good, better farming land. And so they were richer. They had more wealth during that time. So it was an inferiority complex amongst them that we'll see during the time of the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and what we call Medina today. So it's important to note that amongst these tribes, and amongst especially the Jewish tribes, that they did foresee or have a prophecy that the prophet was going to come. So when they would go to war with one another, like if they were losing or whatever have you, their go-to saying was, "Oh, don't worry, wait, prophet is coming, and we're going to come back and we're going to beat you, do you something bad, right?" With the prophet along our side. So they had a prophecy that a prophet was coming in that area, in that region. They had rabbis who were scholars of their Jewish religion, one being Ibn al-Hayyaban, who was originally from Syria, as the book proclaims, and they knew that an Arabian prophet was going to come, but he was not alive to see that. And everybody kind of claims that the prophet will be on their side or whatever have you when he comes. But people migrated to Yathrib just because they knew, or there was word that the prophet would be coming, right? And this is over centuries. Right?
And that was why they wanted to migrate to.
Yathrib, to Medina. Yeah, the Jewish tribes and things that, and others. Some. Others migrated because they were kicked out from the Christian authority, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire above, persecuted. So they left those areas and pushed further down into the desert. But they still had their prophecies nonetheless. And then we get to another important point, which is the annual pilgrimage to Mecca that many of the Arab pilgrims, Arabs had. Was they would all come to Mecca to pay their respects to their idols or whatever have you. And there were amongst the pilgrims at this time 6 notable leaders of the Khazraj. There were 6 notable leaders of the Khazraj. Oh, all right. All right. Yeah, you want to sit down?
Thank you. I did it. I had to came in. Yeah, well, I just had to wait till.
Said you got the water?
Yeah.
What time do you take it? What time do you supposed to take it again?
Listen, you don't take it now? You don't take it early if you need it.
I just got it. That's why I felt it.
Did you eat anything today?
Yes.
Today?
I'm gonna give it like before I leave. I was gonna finish the job.
I got what you have there. You good?
I've been to the year, yeah.
Was you finished, receive?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, we take care of it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, they don't do about that. You come here.
It is.
It's warm in here? What's it on? Yeah, because that's what we put there in the evening, nobody's here. He want to finish starting, that's what he said.
No, we're not finished. We're not finished.
His book, his life story, his book, life. I just keep loving the life. What did I miss? Oh, yeah, that was good.
You didn't miss much.
Yeah, this
Not much.
Just give me a little energy. Yeah, I was bored.
Okay. The law protect us and make it easy for us. I mean, so we're about done. We're about finished. It's just one point, one important pledge that leads to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is covered in Yathrib. And this pledge comes from six of the Khazraj that come for the pilgrimage. They come for the pilgrimage of Mecca, and it's an annual pilgrimage that happens every year. They all come, and they have this understanding that they need a way out of this bad situation that they're in Yathrib. They need a solution, and they try to go to the Meccan Arab tribes, the leaders, the pagan leaders. They try to go to them for a solution. And the pagan leaders kind of just brush them off. They don't really care. They don't want to get involved because, like I said, there's bloodshed every time some disagreement happens or whatever happens. The prophet gets word of this, and he goes to them and he says to them, which is something that he says often, which is, should I suggest for you something better than what you come for? Right? And he always kind of says it in this way. Should I give you something better than this? Or should you want to know something that's better than this? And so they're intrigued and they listen. They're willing to listen to any kind of solution. And he is proclaimed to be a prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him. So they listen and they hear him recite. He recites for them Surah Yunus, I believe, and they immediately understood that this was divine revelation, and they accepted that this was that this was a prophet. This must be upon him, and he encouraged them to go back to their people and proclaim the message. Right? They said to him after the prophet explained his mission, they said to him, "No, surely this is the prophet with whom the Jews with whom the Jews are ever threatening us. So let us make haste and be the first to join him." So we just discussed how the Jews are always threatening that the prophet's going to come. It's going to be on our side. It's going to whoop y'all when it gets here. Right? And so they see this opportunity. They see him as the prophet, and they made contact with him before the Jews can. And even though there's been talking yet about the prophet and Mecca and things of that nature, that nobody took advantage of that to go see. And so they were able to take advantage and be the first six to actually start to proclaim the message and cultivate community for Yathrib while the prophet is still in Mecca.
Self-preservation.
Yes. Yes. So without hesitation, all six of them accepted Islam, and they explained that we have left our community where no tribe is so divided by hate and enmity as they are. Allah may cement our ties through you. So let us go and invite them to this religion of yours. And if Allah unites them in it, no man will be dearer than you. So, why do you think that they needed somebody foreign from Yathrib to come and be a leader of sorts? And why do you think they couldn't just pick one amongst themselves?
Probably animosity between the groups was so strong that no one within that group would listen to and change their behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, the animosity was so strong that nobody would, as soon as some person would come and say, I'm from this place or that place, and proclaim that they're going to unite the tribes, it'd be over. It'd be like an imam saying, from Charlotte that, I'm gonna be the leader of the Charlotte Muslims. And every other masjid will be like, who are you? Right? Whereas if somebody else comes that doesn't have affiliation or whatever have you and says they're going to do a service for the entirety of the community, everybody's more easily able to get on board, right? I see that with our Muslim caucus. We talk to all the masajids around the Charlotte area, and because we're indifferent, because we're just doing something for the betterment of Muslims throughout the community, everybody's been responsive, everybody's been cordial and accepted the fact that we need this, right? Whereas if we had came from one specific community or another, people would have second thoughts and questions, and but that's the nature of tribalism, right? That we have to break. And so this sets the foundation for his return or his journey and that hijrah that we're coming up on after the 11th year, right? So much so that when the prophet comes and is ready, he's the last person, him and Abu Bakr are the last person to make that journey. Like all the other Muslims are already there waiting for him. SubhanAllah. And you can't imagine, and we'll get into it again, but just like imagine like you're journeying after this tumultuous time and after all this uncertainty and bashing and speaking to like brick walls, right, and not getting through to people. You journey and you miraculously make it out of that impossible situation and that very harsh area, almost on the brink of death. You make it out and you're greeted by songs of people welcoming you and clapping and just in the distance, right? You see hundreds of people like clapping and welcoming you and saying, hey, the prophet is here, he's coming, and we love you, prophet, welcome to Yathrib, right? And they have their own special song for it. We'll play that as well. But that feeling of community is now starting to be relevant, and it starts with these 6 coming for the pilgrimage and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forming that foundation out of that in this perfect setting that they need and that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for a perfect mesh. So, all right. So next week we'll go over. Next week it may be online, strictly because I'll be out of town. So it may just be online next week, but we'll go over the night journey. Isra and Mi'raj.
Can we just wait for you to come back?
Next week and out of town? Oh, it's the week after that. Okay, so I'll be here next week. Okay. So we'll go over Isra and Mi'raj, right? And this is a powerful journey that we're going to dive deep into, inshallah, and gain some good knowledge. This is the last kickoff before our journey to the early Medina period. Of course, we have the pledge of Aqaba, but yeah, Isra and Mi'raj is basically the final stint, some things in between from year 11 to year 12, but then we're on to early Medina, inshallah. Okay, any questions? Comments?
The 6 companions you mentioned earlier, their names, they were all from the Medina area.
Yes, they're all from Yathrib at that time, but yes, they're part of the Khazraj, right? 6 from Khazraj. And they go back and they do dawah for those 2 or 3 years. In preparation for the probably supposed to get done. And you can imagine how excited people would be to know that this prophet that everybody's been talking about in the area is going to come and be with them, right? All right. With that, we'll close. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, bless us with the best in this life and the best in the hereafter, and protect us from the punishment and the penalty, the blazing fire. Ya Rabbil Alameen, please bless us with guidance and make it easy for us to follow your guidance, and bless us with peace and understanding in our hearts and souls. Amen. Oh, I did want to. There was a picture of, so they built a Masjid al Jinn, right, where they claim that this happened. And actually, my hotel when I was in Mecca was here, so I can see that outside my window was like about right there, so I can see the Masjid, and we can hear that Masjid in the morning.
It's still here.
Yeah, this is Masjid al Jinn.
Right next door.
This is it's kind of the outskirts of Mecca. This is right before Mina, right before you get into Mina. So on the other side of this is the Jumu'ah, where you stone the Jumu'ah. But yeah, it's interesting to see.
I mean.
That is a which hotel? Which hotel? Oh, the Masjid. It looks a little unique, you know, when you look out the window. I wish I had the connector to your iPhone. I can show you pictures, but it's not internet. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's right. Turn. Turn it off. Yeah, but you can see like the battle butter. No. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like the edge of the Haram. Back in the Prophet's time, this was outside of the Haram. The Haram was very much closer to, um, very much closer to the Kaaba. But as you know, community grows, the Haram expands, and this is still within. It's about 2 miles from the Kaaba. But right outside of this is outside of the Haram, outside of maybe a little further. Medina is over here. This is where all the tents and things will be. Not Medina, Mina. Mina, where all the tents and things will be. And the Jamaat are right over here. Yeah, right over here, the Jamaat. That's a kind of lost lot of history in there. So, and when we get to the Battle of Badr, as the Seerah goes on, it's just much more captivating. We get into Medina, it's a lot more detail and things of that nature. So, inshallah, we get some good knowledge. Okay. Are you starting the Hajj program? Who's leading that? Are we gonna pray first? Pray. Gonna pray first.
Is here one check out lights actors. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. It's yeah. I like the revelation cycle that you have. That's like that guidance is important much. Yeah, they're right there. Yeah, that's their first. That's pretty clear.
Have you seen it on YouTube?
No.
He actually like goes on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and goes into detail about like a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. 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 Have you listened to Dr. Yasser Qadhi's Seerah?
Multiple times. Yeah, I go
Because 14 hours.
yeah. He had somebody else too that he said inspired the book that it's similar to those poems, but it's a little different. But he derives from both of them. But you should give Revelation YouTube. He has like videos going over every chapter. Explaining when he went last.
Yeah. I'll make with you.
All right. Like 1:30.